This is Decision 2024. I'm Mike Sikel. We have our debate today for the New York State Assembly, 100th Assembly District. Early voting will begin October 26th with the general election scheduled for Tuesday, November 5th. Catskills News Decision 2024 now focusing on that race for the 100th State Assembly District. And running on the Democratic line is Paula Elaine Kay. Kay has had a legal career starting as legal counsel at the New York City Council. Moving and raising her family to Sullivan County, she first entered state politics as director of special projects for the late Assemblymember Jake Gunther, later becoming a legislative director for Assemblywoman Aileen Gunther. She has a private law practice since 2008 and also served on the planning and zoning boards in the town of Thompson as town attorney. She has received the endorsement of retiring Assemblywoman Gunther, as well as endorsements from Congressman Pat Ryan, the New York State Troopers PBA and Sullivan County PBA, New York State AFL-CIO, and New York State CSEA Local 100, among others. On the Republican ticket for this year's general election is Lou Ingrassia Jr., a lifetime resident of the 100th Assembly District. Ingrassia has served as Town of Wallkill DPW Commissioner, co-director of the Town of Wallkill Office of Emergency Management, New York State Licensed Water and Waste Treatment Operator, and board member of the Orange County Water Authority. He is an active volunteer firefighter with Howells Fire Company No. 1 for 42 years and has been elected fire commissioner of the district for 23 years. Lou Ingrassia Jr. has received endorsements from Local 2001 of the Transport Workers of America and the NFIB, National Federation of Independent Businesses, as well as others. By coin toss just prior to this debate, Lou Ingrassia Jr. is first with our question, and we'll begin now. The race puts one of you in the position of filling a seat that incumbent Assemblywoman Aileen Gunther has held for over 20 years. So I'd like to start off with just having each of you explain to me what's your priorities and what they might be if you win this election. Lou.
Well, thank you, Mike. I want to thank you for having us here today. I'm looking forward to a good conversation. I want to thank Paula for being here today, of course, as well. My goal is to continue to do what I've done my entire life, and that's help people. I've spent a lifetime in public service. I've spent a lifetime helping people. The New York State Assembly is commonly referred to as the People's House, and I feel that we need to restore, number one, some common sense to the People's House, and number two, I think what we need to do is we need to put someone in place that is going to have the ability, is going to have the life experience, is going to have the subject matter expertise on a lot of things that are facing our community right now in the 100th District. Public safety being paramount, of course. Infrastructure, public works, things like that. That's my background. That's my wheelhouse. We know we have issues in this district with water. We know we have issues in this district with sewer capacity, building, overbuilding, things like that. These are things that I've dealt with my entire career. Also, from a volunteer aspect, again, I've spent a lifetime helping people through the fire department, through local civic organizations. I help veterans. I'm the chairman of the board of Hudson Valley Honor Flight, and my goal would be to, like I said, move into the assembly seat, continue my career in public service by helping people, continue my career in public service by solving problems. I consider myself a person who gets things done. I surround myself with good people to get things done, and going forward, that's exactly what I would like to do, and I plan to do in the New York State Assembly for the good people that live in this district.
Well, Paula Elaine Kay, you've had experience with the retiring Assemblywoman over the years. Explain to me what your priorities might be if you were to win this election.
Certainly. So, as you have stated, I worked with both Jake and Aileen, and I really hope to follow in their footsteps, helping people. That's what it's really all about. We're helping people in the 100th Assembly District. We have some real problems here, including a real scarcity of housing, of attainable housing for kids coming back from college, for our seniors who are looking to downsize, for working families. We have to provide incentives for housing and fix that. We also have a real healthcare desert, and it's getting worse in both Sullivan and Orange County, the Orange County portion of the district. People are having more and more issues accessing quality health care. There are lots of folks in our district who don't have transportation to get to medical appointments, to get to pharmacies, and that's something that I feel very strongly about and we're going to fix.
Well, and we'll be digging a little deeper on all of those topics for both of the candidates here. My next question is politics these days. You know, there's a lot of talk about conservative, liberal positions, left and right. You see that. My question is on the local level, and I say this to both of you. How do you see yourself representing your respective parties?
So, Mike, I really thank you for that. That's a great question. In November, and for those who are voting in October, you will see me on two lines. One is the Democratic line, of course, but the other is a line called People Over Politics, because that's what I really believe in. The Assembly seat is not and should not be partisan. It should be about helping people. It should be about fixing problems, and it doesn't matter what party you are. We all have the same issues. We're all driving on the same roads. We all use the same water. All of our kids are going to our schools within the district, and everybody needs to be treated the same. I don't care what party you are in. I will work with my partners across the aisle to fix problems and work together to help the families in this district.
And Lou, same question concerning, you know, the various left and right positions. How do you see yourself representing your party?
Well, I think what happens is we know that in the New York State Assembly, the Democratic Party currently holds a supermajority. And the supermajority doesn't work for anyone. The supermajority makes so whereas Republicans negotiate in hallways, Republicans get things at the last minute. Republicans don't have a seat at the table. What's interesting in this district, you know, out of the the 80-some 90,000 people that are registered to vote here, it's a three-way split between Democrats, Republicans, and independents and blanks. What I do find ironic, of course, is that, you know, my opponent, a lot of her platform has been to the fact that she's in the majority party, and by returning someone to the majority party is the only way that we're going to get anything done in the 100th district. And I think it's clear that the problems we have in the 100th district, I don't think that's a good platform. I don't think that's a good platform at all. I think it's time for change. I think it's time to break the supermajority. And as a Republican conservative candidate, I look forward to doing that.
Well, and my next question, let's dig a little into the budget deficit. Of course, there is a deficit looming for New York State following the passage of this year's state budget. Now, one source of additional income has been the idea of raising taxes on high-income earners. So, Paula, Elaine K., what is your position on this?
Obviously, we spend a lot of money in this state, and we spend a lot of money on helping people, and we spend a lot of money on infrastructure. But as far as taxing high-income earners, I think we need to look at the formulas that we use to tax. This state is taxing based on property values. And since the pandemic, property values have increased exponentially because of an influx of folks who are coming to the 100th district, especially from other locations, New York City, New Jersey, for example. And what that's done, it has raised the assessed values throughout this district, meaning that people who are on fixed incomes, like seniors, their property values are going up and they can't afford those increases. So we need to take a look at that, and we need to take a look at the calculation and make a change. And I also want to state that, again, this is not partisan. This is about helping our residents get through their days.
Lou Ingrassia?
Well, again, taxes, et cetera. The main issue is that we're taking money and we're putting money in places where it's not doing any good. We all know that. The migrant crisis, okay? New York State has invested over $5 billion, $5 billion with a B, over the past 2 years, throwing money at a problem in New York City that was created by turning our cities into sanctuary cities, bringing people into our communities that we don't know, that haven't been vetted. So at the end of the day, instead of looking to raise taxes to fill the budget gap, what I would be implored to do, and what I would do, I would fight to make sure that the money that we are raising is going to the proper areas. Because what we're doing now is we're wasting a tremendous amount of money. And throwing money at problems does not solve problems. We know that. If you look around the district, we talk about a healthcare desert. We talk about transportation. We talk about water, sewer infrastructure. We talk about things failing. All of those things are failing and they're all being driven by the lack of funding. And the problem is that the funding is not going where the funding needs to go. Raising taxes on people, whether they're high income, low income, middle income, that is not a solution, that's for sure. What we need to do is we need to sit down at the table, come up with good ideas, come up with common goals, return to common sense, and say, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing with the money that we get? What are we going to better do with the money that we get? Where can we apply this money to better solve our problems? So instead of taxing people and pushing people out of New York State left and right, take the money that's out there, put the money in the right spot. I've said this since the beginning when I started this in February. What's happened now is the Democratic majority in Albany has turned Budget and Hertz Rent-A-Truck into the best two businesses in New York State. People are leaving by droves, and we need to return common sense. We need to get back to the table. We need to have a two-party discussion, and at the end of the day, solve problems so people will continue to live and prosper here in the 100th District.
Well, and I'd follow up since you are next, Lou Ingrassia, and like follow up on specifically property taxes. You mentioned some facts that people are burdened living in New York, and that there is an exodus of residents. So tell me specifically some ideas on alternatives to property taxes. I mean, do you have any specific plans? How do you decrease the tax burden for property owners?
Well, as we know, like we say, that is the formula that's in place now. That formula is broken, that's for sure. I bought my first piece of property in 1986. I built my house in 1993. I've paid taxes now for close to 40 years, property tax, and we see that growing exponentially. What we need to do is we need to come up with a new formula. Is it a sales tax? Is it something like that? Putting the burden on the backs of the property owners at the end of the day is what's driving people away. Once again, find out where the money is, where the money's coming in, where the money is going. Provide incentives for taxpayers. You know, we lure a new business into town and we give them all types of incentives and things like that. But at the end of the day, we don't do anything for the businesses or the residents that have been here for long periods of time. The other thing we need to do is we need to reestablish and take a look and find out, you know, are we overburdened? Are we overburdened with, you know, too many different individual taxing entities? In New York State, I believe the number is over 9,000 taxing entities. Those are water, those are sewer, those are schools, those are libraries, those are all types of taxing districts. We are the most overtaxed state in the union, and that's why people are deciding not to live here. That's why kids are coming back or not coming back from college and moving on. But ultimately, what we need to do is we need to get the root core of the problem, put the money back where the money is going to do the best good, reevaluate and check what the programs are, check what the calculations are for property tax, and we need to better help the property owners, because by putting that burden on them and putting that on their back, that's why they're looking to go other places. You know, I know in the 100th District itself, people jump to Pennsylvania. You know, they feel that the tax burden is lighter in Pennsylvania. That's not good. That's not good for any of us. Once again, communication, common sense.
And Paula, Aileen, Kate, same question. You spoke a little bit about property taxes.
Yes.
I would like to ask you, do you have any specific plans to decrease the tax burden for property owners? How do you go about that?
Certainly. So two things. One, the New York State Legislature enacted a very minor tax incentive for emergency responders, for firefighters, and it didn't go far enough, and it's not helpful. We have a ever lessening number of volunteers because of all the onerous burdens we're putting on them. So we need to give them some incentives. And I would propose to really make a realistic tax incentive for firefighters, EMS workers who are volunteers and who are out there saving us and helping us out in times of crisis. I think that's very important. I also would look again at the formula, at looking at the assessed value, because again, since the pandemic, we have had an influx of people. We have people coming into the 100th District who bought houses sight unseen in bidding wars, and that jumped up the prices of housing throughout our district in an exponential manner, meaning that people from our district can't afford to live here anymore. We have to fix that. We need incentives for housing. We need to make sure that there's housing for people who want to be here, who want to continue to live here, who have lived there all their lives and can't afford it because of the property taxes and because of the pure tremendous price of housing in the 100th Assembly District.
And I wanted to move on to our next segment, taking a look at some specifics for each of the candidate as they make their way to the 100th Assembly District. As a member of the Assembly, of course, you'd be tasked with securing capital aid for your district. So what do you think are some of the key areas to focus on? We'll start with Lou Ingrassia, Jr.
Key areas, of course, infrastructure, good sound infrastructure, water, sewer, highways, bridges, things like that. Our emergency services, again, 42 years as a volunteer fireman, 23 years as a fire commissioner, we know where that lacks. Some of the comments that have been made, of course, is that, the only way we're going to receive any capital monies here is by returning a Democratic majority member to the Assembly. That's certainly not true. Sometimes we're short-sighted. Sometimes we don't see the trees through the forest. We can take $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, quote unquote member item. I know they don't call them that anymore, but that's truly what they are. During an election year, we see our incumbents come to the table with tons of money and give money away. We need just to be smarter with that. We need to take that money and we need to be good, sound stewards of what we're going to do with that money. In the town of Wallkill, specifically since I took over as a commissioner of Public Works in 2013, right now we're administering somewhere in the neighborhood of about $21 million in grants. Those are EFC grants. Those are, dormitory authority grants, things like that. What you have to make sure is that when you give this money out, you have to make sure that it's good, sound investment in what that money is going to do. We've actually been lucrative in the fact that there's a lot of communities, somebody will show up with a big fancy check, give them $10,000, $15,000, and over the course of a year, 2 years, 3 years, they don't do the paperwork to get the money. So we've actually been successful with taking that money and reappropriating it to places that do get the job done. But to get back to your question, if in fact that was the plan to bring those capital items back and those capital monies back, the best sound advice for investment right now is infrastructure, highway, water, sewer, transportation, things like that.
And Paula Kay, again, same question, capital aid.
Certainly.
What are some key areas you would focus on?
Sure. First, I want to applaud Aileen Gunther for all of the capital aid that she has brought back to our district in order to make it what it is. And in the town of Wallkill, in the city of Middletown, the amount of funding that she has brought back for key projects, the revitalization of the city of Middletown, all of that work down there is because of the cooperation between the mayor's office, Aileen Gunther, and Senator Skoufis. And it is so important to realize that cooperation with the state and local authorities is what makes this happen. In terms of capital funding, I agree, infrastructure is certainly important. We also need a lot of aid for our first responders, for firehouses, for equipment. We need school aid. Our schools are aging, and we need assistance with that. We like to listen. My whole goal is to listen to the local authorities and see what projects they may have on their, coming up.
Well, and Paula Kay, I have the next question for you as well. Moving on to the drug crisis. Of course, it continues to impact the state as well as, of course, the district here. And as a member of the Assembly in the 100th District, how would you allocate resources to both protect citizens from crime associated with drug distribution, as well as making treatment available to those who are in need?
Okay, so let's first start with the crisis, especially in Sullivan County. Most recently, Sullivan County had the most overdoses in the state, and now we are number 2 in terms of counties with the most overdoses in the state. So we have made a little bit of progress, and we have some great organizations working on this, and we need more assistance, more help from Albany, because there is a crisis in our community, and you see it every day. My office is on Broadway in Monticello, And I walk down Broadway, and I see people in crisis all the time. And I make phone calls to our law enforcement so that we can get some assistance for folks. It is very troubling. People need mental health counseling, and we don't have enough. We don't have enough healthcare providers in our district to do everything that's needed. Our schools need more counselors, especially since the pandemic. There is such a need, and we need to do better by them. So that is critical for me. Now, going to the law enforcement side of it, we've got to help law enforcement, and bail reform didn't work, folks. It doesn't work because we're looking at choosing between what's in a person's pocket in terms of whether or not they are being released, instead of who is the most great or the greatest threat to society and to our community. So that's why I have the backing of 4 local PBAs, because they know that I will work with them. We've got to bring discretion back to our judges. We have to give our law enforcement the tools to do their job to make our communities safer.
And Lou Ingrassia, the drug crisis, allocating resources, both protecting citizens and also helping those in need.
Absolutely. And once again, let's thank the majority in Albany for all those problems. They created them. So let's thank them very much for that. The drug crisis, we know it's real. We know it's out there. Anybody who says they haven't been affected by it, they're living in a fantasy land. In the town of Walk Hill, we were on the forefront with the Hope's Not Handcuffs program. Our police department was one of the first ones that entered into that. I serve as the co-director of emergency management in the town of Walk Hill with our police chief, Robert Hertman, and we talk on a daily basis, not on just emergency management, but on a multitude of things. The other thing that we were able to do in Walk Hill, and this is something we can establish and take it throughout the 100th District, we have actually now mobile mental health staff on board in Walk Hill, 40 hours per week, to give people the help that they need. My goal would be, again, to bring the programs here, to bring the money here, to help people where they need it, bring the programs to the people. We can't expect people to get to the program. We have to take it to them, and that's what I would work hard to do.
Well, and you get the next question as well. Lou Ingrassia, state money in this year's budget is being allocated to better access mental health professionals, particularly in schools. That's been a target area. Are you confident in this initiative, and what would your approach be in the Assembly?
Well, interestingly enough, yes, absolutely. We need help. We need help, and I know that for a fact. My wife is a school teaching assistant. My son is a school teacher, and my daughter's a school teacher. So I hear it every day at my dinner table. We don't have enough support staff in the schools. We don't have enough counselors. We don't have enough people to help us in the schools. I hear that on a daily basis. What should happen is there should be checks and balances. You can't just cut a blank check to a town, a municipality, a school district, whatever it is, and not see any return on that investment. My goal would be to say, okay, we're giving this money out. Let's see what the return is. Are we having true results? Are we helping the people that need help? Are the counselors and the folks that are doing the job that they need to do, are they being provided with the resources that they need to get that job done? It all comes down again, and I know I sound, rhetoric here, but it comes down to follow the money. Where's the money going? Is the money being spent properly? Are we just throwing money against problems? We can have a big warm fuzzy and we can say that we're going to, increase funding for this and increase funding for that. But at the end of the day, if there's no follow-up, if there's no follow-through to see if, in fact, these programs are successful, then we're just doing a disservice to ourselves and to our residents and specifically to our school children. And again, like I said, being surrounded by school teachers, I hear it every day. Kids slip through the cracks, they end up back on the street, and then it just becomes a snowball effect to the next problem. And the next problem could be, going into the drug epidemic and things like that. And we wonder where that happens and why that happens. That happens at the ground level. That happens in our schools, not giving the kids the programs they need and not following through to make sure that the monies that we do give are being spent properly.
Well, and Paula Case, same question, asking about mental health professionals. And are you confident in the current initiative? What would your approach be in the Assembly?
Well, I'm confident in the initiative, but again, the follow-up goes back to we just don't have enough counselors in the 100th Assembly District. Our schools are struggling to find the people that they need. It's part of our healthcare epidemic, which unfortunately none of this exists in a vacuum. We have a housing crisis. There's nowhere for people to live, so that causes a issue with finding and retaining mental health care workers and healthcare workers throughout our district. So all of these things need to be looked at together. And it also, you go back to childcare slots, same thing. If you find housing, which is very difficult to do, you also need childcare if you're a parent and you're working. We need to look at this all together. Nothing can be looked at on its own.
Well, and Paula, you get the next question. I'm moving on to healthcare costs. And of course, many healthcare systems in the district have been financially stressed, including some that have historically been given state funding to survive. So I'd ask, what are your priorities on how you can make changes on the state level, and where do you stand on state Medicaid allocations?
Well, the reimbursement rate in Sullivan County is lower than our surrounding counties. And that is a huge problem with attracting healthcare workers. And that is one of the biggest issues that we have in the northern part of the 100th district. If you can't retain workers who want to be here, who feel that they can make a living here for their families, they're not going to come here, which means we have a problem. And we saw it last week. Aileen facilitated a conversation between seniors and hospital officials. And we saw the utter fear that these seniors had with their ability to access quality health care. And I've seen it in Middletown. I've had discussions with seniors in Middletown who can't get to their health care providers any longer. Some health care providers in private practices who used to work in Middletown and Walk Hill have moved to other locations, and the seniors can't access that anymore through their transportation programs. This is a crisis, and we need to do better for these people, for our residents, and the biggest problem is our reimbursement rate.
And Lou Ingrassia, same question, priorities, and how do you think you could make changes on the state level, as well as where do you stand on state Medicaid allocations?
Well, once again, thank you, Albany. Thank you for the problem. Thank you for creating the problem. It's our job now to solve the problem. From the Medicare side and the Medicare reimbursement side, bring everybody to the table. Force the issue. As an assembly person, you will have a pulpit that you'll be able to use to go forward with that. I've said this all along, in Sullivan County specifically, bring the big three to the table, okay? You've got Crystal Run, or now Optimum. You've got Middletown Medical. You've got Garnet Health Partners. Bring them to the table. Find out what their problem is, what their story is. And the other thing is, maybe we reinvent what we do. I know from a teacher level, you commit 4 or 5 years to a school district, they pay off your student loans. Why don't we try doing some of that with our nursing students, some of our PAs, possibly some of our doctors, get them back into the area, give them an incentive to be here. At the end of the day, they all took an oath to help people and to, take care of people. And I think they're willing to do that as long as we provide them with the tools and the resources to get it done.
And the next question, also to Lou Ingrassia to start this round. Want to talk about what many have described as a housing crisis. The new state budget is aiming to increase housing supply through tax incentives and exemptions. How effective do you think these measures are in addressing the issue within the 100th Assembly District?
What they're proposing and what they're saying, I honestly don't think is going to be successful at all. So what they're going to say is we're going to give X amount of dollars to new homeowners. All that's going to do is that's going to incentivize builders to raise the price. That's exactly what's going to happen. What we need to do is we need to get back to the root problem. We need to find out what the big problem is, where it's coming from. Is it driven by interest rates? Is it driven by lack of affordable housing, of course? Again, my experiences in the town of Walk Hill, we've had a tremendous success rate with building public-private partnerships for what we consider workforce housing senior housing. We have several senior developments in our town that are very sound, that are very good. We have several workforce housing projects in our town that are very sound, very good. Again, real world experience that I can bring to Albany, that I can use to lobby for the betterment of everyone in the 100th district. And we have true examples and prime examples of how we've done that and how we can continue to do that moving forward. To incentivize things and to, talk about incentives and property tax abatements and things like that. On a housing level, the only person that's going to help the builder. That's not going to help the end user. Somewhere they're going to incorporate those costs into their pricing of their homes. They're going to raise that up. I know on the national level they're talking about that $50,000 incentive to buy or build a house today. So if I'm a builder, I'm just going to jack the price up. That's what I'm going to do. Once again, common sense, sitting down, having true dialogue, sitting down with everyone in the room, not telling people to wait out in the hallway until we pass this law or bring it to you at midnight and say, here it is, you got an hour to look at it. Let's get back to communication. Let's get back to doing the right thing for people. Let's get back to doing what elected officials are tasked with truly doing and make it more about their constituents and not about themselves.
And Paula Kay, again, concerning the housing crisis, with the new state budget and the various incentives, how effective do you think these measures are in addressing that crisis?
Well, first I want to say as an assembly member for the 100th district, my job is to represent the people of the 100th district, not the leaders in Albany, and certainly not the people of New York City, who seem to access a unusually large portion of the budget. We have to stop that. Rural New York has rights too. And so in terms of housing incentives, what we have to do is we do have to bring incentives here. We have to talk to our large employers who have needs because they can't fill slots, not just medical folks, but some of our largest employers have help wanted all over the place because there's a dearth of affordable, attainable housing and the healthcare crisis. We have to work together, put everybody in a room, and I'm the person who can do that.
I'm going to move on to the next question to you, Paula Kay, and we're talking infrastructure.
Yes.
It's certainly another issue that affects local community budgets. The latest budget replaced some of the millions of dollars of the Consolidated Local Street and Highway Improvement Program, the CHIPS funding that many people hear about. So the question is, do you feel that the current allocation for infrastructure is sufficient at that spending level? Would you do anything different?
Well, every year we play the same game with CHIPS funds and foundation aid up in Albany, and it's just wrong. We're playing games with money, and especially when you talk about school funding, you're playing games with people's lives and their jobs. Every year, the highway superintendents have to go up to Albany and lobby to get the money that they were already going to get, but they have to play this game. We have to stop it. The budget needs to be realistic. We need to sit down, and as a member of the majority, I would have the ability to do that with the superintendents and with the leadership and say, let's put a realistic budget together. Let's not cut and bring it back. It's just a waste of people's time. We don't need to do that. We need, if you look at Route 17 today, there is a long line from Liberty almost to Monticello of work being done on Route 17. It is long overdue. The state takes a very long time to do anything, to put into action something that has, clearly been a need for a very long time. I've ridden these roads every single day. The potholes are extremely dangerous. They're dangerous for drivers. They're dangerous for law enforcement who, have to get somewhere very quickly. They're dangerous for first responders. So our roads need our assistance now, and we need to make sure that there is plenty of money in the pot every year without this game that Albany plays. It's got to stop.
And Lou Ingrassia, same question on infrastructure. Do you feel the current allocations are sufficient at the current spending level? Would you do anything different?
Well, as the only highway superintendent in the room, Chips is me. Chips is my wheelhouse. Interestingly enough, this year, and I've done it for the past 11 years, I've put on the big orange shirt and I've gone up there and I've lobbied to get the money back that was due to us anyway. Interestingly enough, this year, Orange County, all Orange County municipalities all in, took a 2% increase in chips. Sullivan County, all municipalities, took a 4% hit on chips, 4% less. So once again, here we are. We're talking about things that are, and programs that are being driven again by the majority, and they're just not working. They're not working at all. And you talk about a subject matter expert on chips and highway funding and EFC and environmental facilities and water, sewer, bridges, roadways. I am that person. And again, subject matter expertise that literally very few elected members of the assembly would be able to bring to the table that I have.
Well, and Lou Ingrassia, you get the next question. This one specifically on transportation. And I wanted to talk a little bit, especially since the 100th Assembly District borders on the area that would perhaps be affected by congestion tolls. Now, that order is on hold by the governor right now. Some have suggested this is going to be a temporary hold. So two parts to my transportation question. What are your feelings on congestion tolls, which would affect commuters in the district? And what are your feelings about the need for public transportation within the region, within this assembly district?
Well, congestion pricing, like unfortunately a lot of the state programs that are rolled out, they believe that they're overthinking them and they're just not coming down to the real level. So that's why the governor put a halt on it. I also feel that was a political move by the governor to put a halt on it. That's my opinion. I don't think congestion pricing is going to work. It's going to hurt people that go to work every day. It's going to hurt our policemen, our firemen that live in this area in the 100th Assembly District, our nurses, our doctors, people that commute into the city. It's definitely going to hurt them. That's for sure. So I don't think congestion pricing is a good thing at all. When it comes to public transportation, again, my experience in the town of Walk-Hill, we run a very, very robust town of Walk-Hill transportation system. It used to be called Dial-A-Bus, and now it's just Walk-Hill Transit. We run 6 buses a day. We move thousands of people of all ages. Originally, it was a senior program, and now it's people of all ages we move throughout our community. We have intermunicipal agreements with the town of Warwick. We work very well with them. We travel into the city of Middletown to a true travel hub, and these are things in real life, real world experience that I can bring to the 100th Assembly District. We can provide that type of transportation in the Monticello area, the Fallsburg area, the Liberty area. It can work, and it can work at a regional level. And we can have municipalities buy in. We can have shared service agreements. We can have joint maintenance agreements. We can reinvest and reinvent the way that we provide public transportation. It can be done, and I have real-world experience on doing that. I was the highway commissioner when we signed our intermunicipal agreement with the town of Warwick to oversee and run our bus program, and that certainly can be taken to the next level, and it can be spread across the 100th district. And again, I have that experience, and I would certainly, that would be a priority, that's for sure.
And Paula Kate, same question on transportation, your thoughts on congestion tolls, and what are your feelings about public transportation within the district, within the region?
So congestion pricing would have been a disaster, and the governor put it on pause. But what that means is there's a huge hole in the budget that has to be filled, and it better not be filled on the backs of the good working families in the 100th Assembly District. So we have to watch and be very careful with how the governor fills that hole in the budget. As far as transportation, there is such a scarcity of transportation. As I said earlier today, we have people who cannot access health care. They can't get to pharmacies. They can't get to doctors. They can't get to work. They can't drop their kids off at childcare because there is such a lack of transportation services. We have to do better. Sullivan County has Sullivan Move, and that bus service goes throughout the county at various times, but it costs money to do more, and we need to bring that money back to the district in order to improve our transportation.
Well, and Paula Kay, the next question I'll have for you. New York State, it's always been talked about as placing burdensome regulations on residents, on industry, and specifically on environmental concerns. So some of the goals have been making only electric vehicles in the state, as well as changing over a substantial fleet of school buses to all electric. What are your feelings? Do you feel these goals are attainable? And do you support this as part of the environmental mandate of New York State?
Well, unfunded mandates are the bane of New York State. They really are. Do I oppose conversion to electric? Not at, it has to be done in a proper fashion so it doesn't impact people's jobs and it doesn't cause, it doesn't cost a lot of money for the individuals who are being forced to change over their vehicles. It's not, we're not talking dollars here. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. We have to be very careful. We have businesses, we don't want to run them out of the state because of changes that the governor is making. So electricity is good, and we've got to be careful about our climate, and we've got to watch our water, and we only have one world and one earth to live on. So we have to be very careful, but we also have to be very careful that we don't mandate these regulations on the backs of the working families and on the backs of the businesses. So we have to take this slowly and carefully and check the impact on our businesses and our families here and on the workers to make sure that all jobs are retained. It's very important.
Lou Ingrassia, question on the regulations, especially concerning environmental concerns. Do you feel the goals are attainable, and do you support them?
Well, Mike, as you and I have spoke before, I've been a steward of the environment for 38 years. I started in the town of Walk Hill as a laborer in the Water and Sewer Department. I hold right now New York State water and sewer wastewater licenses. The water at the highest grade you can get, wastewater at the second highest grade you can get. So I've dealt with overregulation my entire career. The issue, what happens is we get things, and they don't come out of the governor's office, they come out of the majority, once again. We get things that are unobtainable. There's a new code rule out there on wetlands, 644, that may take your 2-acre piece of property and you wouldn't be able to do anything with it. There's hearings going on right now. They haven't even given us maps to look at how that's going to be affected. As far as electric vehicles, we've talked about buses. We've talked about what's going to happen is they're mandating that 10% of the heavy equipment on the road has to be electric. It's unobtainable. The infrastructure can't take it. The electric infrastructure can't provide it. These vehicles weigh and cost 3 times as much, so it's just going to put a bigger strain on, and it is certainly not obtainable at this time.
Well, turning to social and public safety issues, we've touched upon some of these items, but specifically, I want to talk about New York, which has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. Now, some are still in litigation. Do you think that they're working as far as the gun laws go? Do you think they're working? What's your position on Second Amendment rights? And we'll start with you, Lou Ingrassia.
Well, as a gun owner, as a sportsman, I've had a New York State full carry permit since I was 21 years old. I carry a Pennsylvania permit. I carry a Utah permit. I feel that we have the right to defend ourselves and to bear arms. I'm a huge Second Amendment person. Once again, when we roll out laws that aren't thought out and things like that, we end up with things like the SAFE Act, where it prohibits good, law-abiding sportsmen and individuals from owning certain types of weapons in New York State. The majority of crime and the majority of bad things that happen with guns don't happen with good people. Good people that are stewards of the Second Amendment, they have gun locks, they have gun safes, they take care of their weapons. Once again, we try to overregulate by creating laws that are unobtainable, of laws that can't be enforced. It's a problem. It's a huge problem. And to arbitrarily say that we're going to pass a law that's going to help curb violence, curb shootings, things like that. No, what we need to do is we need to put the ability for district attorneys and the ability for judges to get back to treating criminals like criminals and not coddling them. And everything comes together. It comes together with the Bail Reform Act of 2019. It comes together with the SAFE Act. And what we end up with is bad people on our streets, and that's not good. It's not good at all. The reciprocity of crime, they're going to tell you that it's not a real thing. It is a real thing. People that are arrested, dozens of times. It only comes to the limelight when someone is arrested by perpetrating a crime on possibly someone that matters. And I know that's a terrible statement. But at the end of the day, when it's just a number, nobody cares. When it's somebody in your group, your family, or your community, it's paramount. So no, what we have on the books is not working.
And Paula Kay, same question regarding gun laws, New York State gun laws as they stand right now, and your position on Second Amendment rights?
Absolutely. So I totally support the Second Amendment, and I think it is I think it is so important that we protect the people of the state of New York, the hunters, the folks who are, again, protecting their homes. They should be allowed I believe everyone should be allowed legal guns, and we're not going to take anything away from the good citizens of the state of New York. And the sportsmen across this district are trying so hard to educate our children and work with them, and we need to work with the sportsmen to make sure that they have what they need to facilitate all the great educational events that they have. We actually have a camp in Livingston Manor, and that camp needs renovations, and I plan, if elected, to help to make sure that happens.
Well, and Paula Kay, you get the next question, and it's something we've touched upon already, but bail reform.
Yes.
Can it be revamped? Is it just time to replace it? And if I can add to that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the influx of migrants. Some high-profile crime incidents have been noted in upstate New York, not necessarily locally within the district, but in other parts of upstate. And so what is your position on dealing with migrants in our communities? What do you feel could be some solutions to that problem?
Okay. Let's start with bail reform, because this is something it is so clear to me. It's not working. It has to be fixed. We've got to get back to the table. We've got to give our district attorneys and our police officers and our judges a seat at that table to fix this problem. We are hampering law enforcement by with this law, and we need to make significant change. We need to give the judges back the discretion that they have as professionals to make decisions about safety in our communities. So we don't have recidivist criminals being arrested, released, and committing another crime. Again, that is why 4 local PBAs are supporting me in this election. As far as the immigration crisis in this country, oh my gosh, it is a problem. We need to close the border. That's a federal issue, and I would work with federal partners, but the federal government has got to do their job.
And on our next question, I wanted to talk a little bit about the proposal that's on the ballot this November, Proposal 1. It's called the Equal Rights Amendment. Proponents say adding these rights to the state constitution are a priority. Opponents have pointed to the fact that abortion became New York state law back in 1970, and that the state already has adequate discrimination laws in place. So what's your position on Proposal 1 as it stands? And that question for you, Lou.
Okay. Yeah, Mike, just to jump back for a minute, do I get an opportunity on the bail reform and the
yes, you
migrants?
Do. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Your response to bail reform and migrants, please.
Okay, thank you. Well, I want to thank Paula for reading the Republican agenda, because that is our agenda, so that sounds good. But at the end of the day, it's not a joking matter. It's not. Bail reform has not worked. It is not. When it was rolled out haphazardly, of course. What we've done is we've over-politicized district attorneys. I've been saying that since the beginning. We need to return the scales of justice back to where they belong. From the migrant crisis, again, sanctuary cities, sanctuary counties, sanctuary towns, certainly not working. We see that. We see crimes being committed. We see people that enter our country illegally. They're in our community. They're here, and that needs to be repaired, and that needs to be fixed. All of that is paramount, and all of that will be a priority. And unfortunately, every bit of that, again, is a benefit of the current majority in Albany, and it's sad.
Well, in our questioning rotation, Ingrassia, you have the next question, and it's the question on Proposal 1 on the Equal Rights Amendment. So what's your position on Proposal 1 as it stands?
I cannot be any more clearer than tell everyone that is watching this debate or listening to this debate is to, when they go into the polling booth, is to turn over that ballot and vote no on Proposition 1. Proposition 1 has nothing to do with equal rights. It's got nothing to do with protecting people's right to choose. What it's got to do with basically getting into our families, getting into our schools, taking parental rights away from parents. It's got nothing to do with the abortion issue. Like you had mentioned in your question, abortion was codified in 1970 in New York State. I have no interest in addressing that, changing that, working towards anything different that was on the books today. I'm one of 5 children. I have 2 of my own. It's just wrong what they're trying to do with this Proposition 1. It's being thinly veiled as an equal rights amendment. It's being thinly veiled as the only way is we're going to protect abortion. But what it really is, it's basically taking parental rights 100% away from parents. As a parent, my children are grown. My children are out of school. They're both gainfully employed. I'm hoping someday I'll have grandchildren. A school nurse can't give your child a Tylenol, but a school nurse can hide the fact from a parent that a student may want to get into some type of gender change, transgender. I'm a firm believer. Let everybody live their life. Let everybody live the life they want. Let them live the life that they want to have. Let them live their life in the manner that they want it. But at the end of the day, what this is doing is a thinly veiled attempt to take parental rights away, and we cannot allow that to happen. Paramount to this election. Win, lose, or draw, you need to vote no on Proposition number 1.
And Paula Kay, your position on Proposal 1 as it stands?
Sure. Proposal 1 has nothing to do with parental rights. I completely disagree with my opponent. The plain reading of the law is all about equal rights, and equal rights includes rights to abortion. And let's talk about for a minute the really critical thing here, which is a woman's right to choose. I'd like to know where my opponent stands on that. A woman should have the right to make medical decisions for her body. Shouldn't be made by anybody else. If she wants to consult with her physician, that's fine. But it is paramount that my daughter, who's 26 years old, retains the rights that I had when I was her age. We can't go back.
Well, and Paula Kay, you get the next question as we're winding down here. Back in June, Catskills News Decision 2024 hosted our Republican primary debate. Since then, as we all are aware, the presidential race has changed course, and some point to the down ballot effect of having Vice President Harris taking on former President Trump. Do you feel that this might have an effect on your campaign for the 100th Assembly District?
My campaign, as I said before, is completely bipartisan. I have support across the aisle, all over this district, because my campaign is not about party politics and partisanship. My campaign is all about the families and the people in the 100th district and giving them a voice in Albany. As I said, it's education, roads, healthcare, housing. It's all about people. I will work with any partner that I can find on either side of the aisle in order to make sure that the people in this district get what they deserve, that this district retains all of the good work that Aileen Gunther did, bringing in grants, bringing in programming for the people of the 100th district.
And Lou Ingrassia, same question. Do you have any feelings on how this might have an effect on your campaign?
Yeah, I just want to drop back for 1 minute, Mike, if I could, please. Paul asked a question to me, and my belief the same as a father of a 26-year-old daughter, is that my daughter's decisions should be made with her health care provider and with herself and no one else. And no one needs to be in that business. We don't need people to be dropping laws out of Albany, and I would have no intent on doing it. I would have no intent. of even addressing that issue or changing it anyway other than the way it's codified in New York State right now. So that is one issue that we can agree on.
And you have about 20 seconds left on this answer, but do you feel that the current presidential debate might have an effect on your campaign?
Well, I do. And I think what's going to happen is I want the people to vote for the person. That's what I really want to do. The educated voter is going to look at the ballot. They're going to decide who the right person is. And they're going to work towards a good, clear, cognizant position. And I feel after hearing all the facts, they're going to feel that I'm going to be the one to best represent them in the 100th District.
Well, thank you to both our candidates for this lively discussion and civil discussion, which I'm very happy about. We're moving on to closing statements now. Each of you get 2 minutes for your closing statements, and we, with the coin toss, Lou Ingrassia Jr., your closing statement, please.
Well, I just want to thank again, Mike. I want to thank you, and I want to thank everyone for hosting this format. It's informative. I think it's one of the only ways that we can actually sit down collectively and speak about our platforms and our positions. I'm going to go back to where I started. Where I've spent a lifetime helping people. My dad always told me, God rest his soul, what are you doing when nobody's watching? I've done a lot of things for people when nobody's watching. I've spent a lifetime serving my community in various aspects. The majority of it for little or no remuneration. And that's my choice, and I'm okay with that. At the end of the day, I think what we need someone that's going to go to Albany, someone that's going to be willing to knock on doors, someone that's going to be willing to, quote unquote, pound on the table, and someone that's willing to say, listen, we have a lot of problems in this district. We have a lot of problems in this district that are driven by the status quo. We talk about majority, and I know Paula and her platform is people over politics. I understand. However, the majority of her supporters are saying the reason that she needs to go there is because she's in the majority. And a minority candidate in Albany is not going to get anything done. There's been editorials on that, things like that. And what I'll offer on that is take a look around. Is New York State heading in the wrong direction, or are we heading in the right direction? I feel, and my supporters feel, that we're heading in the wrong direction. We talk about majority and the majority being able to bring things back. We are closing a prison in Sullivan County. There's 2 in New York State. With over a 20-year incumbent of the majority party, they're closing that prison in Sullivan County. So I would say it's time for a change. I would say it's time for fresh ideas. I would say it's a time for fresh vision. And I would say that it's time for someone to go to Albany with real-world subject matter expertise on the problems that are facing our district. And I know I'm that person, and I'm asking for your support on November 5th. Thank you.
Paula Elaine Kay, your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. Well, I also want to thank you, Mike, for hosting this, and thank you, Lou, for being here with me today and having as you said, a spirited and cordial conversation. It is so important for the 100th District that we do continue the work of Jake and Aileen. They have committed so much work to this district, and it has been so successful. Are there problems? Of course there are. There are problems throughout this country, and there are real problems in the 100th District. But I am the person who will be able to sit at the table and make those changes. And I will do that because I'm the person who's going to be listening to the residents of this district. I have spent, since February, I've gone throughout this district, and I've had meetings throughout this district with policy leaders, with heads of hospitals, with university presidents, with teachers, with union members, with carpenters, with working families, with nurses, because I need to listen to the people who live here. They are our focus, and they need to remain that way. That's why I have the support of so many unions, because they know that I am listening to them, and I will be their voice in Albany. I do have bipartisan support because I am looking for rational solutions to the problems that face this district on an everyday basis. Nothing is going to change overnight, but we can make incremental changes to make people's lives better, whether it be, again, younger folks coming back who want to come back to the community that raised them, and older folks who want to age in place. We have to help all of our residents to realize a better life in the 100th district.
Well, thanks again to both our candidates in this race for the 100th State Assembly District, Democrat Paula Elaine Kay, Republican Lou Ingrassia Jr. Thank you both for the discussion. Very much appreciated. I'm Mike Sikel, and that is Decision 2024, the State Assembly Debate, here on Catskills News Talk 92.5 and 94.9.